Kate Clark here with the 2017 AP Computer Science A FRQ question number 2. This question involves the design of a class that will be used to produce practice problems. The following study practice interface represents practice problems that can be used to study some subject. So I have a public interface called study practice, which has a method requirement, string get problem, and void next problem. So the multi-practice class is a study practice that produces multiplication practice problems. A multi-practice object is constructed with two integer values, first integer and initial second integer. The first integer is a value that remains constant and is used as the first integer in every practice problem. The initial second integer is used as the starting value for the second integer in the practice problems. This second value is incremented for each additional practice problem that is produced by the class. For example, multi-practice object created with a call new multi-practice 7, 3 this would be used to create the practice problems 7 times 3, 7 times 4, 7 times 5, etc. In the multi-practice class, the get problem method returns a string in the format of first integer times second integer. The next problem method updates the state of multi-practice object to represent the next practice problem. And remember, the second value is incremented. So there's the directions. And here's some examples on page 9. So if I create a practice problem, a multi-practice with 7, 3, and I get the problem and print it out, it'll print out 7 times 3. Then I go to the next problem, print it out. The problem now is 7 times 4. So it looks like the second has increased. Get the next problem, print it out, 7 times 5. Next problem, get it, print it out, 7 times 6. Okay, so if I start with 4 and 12 instead, then I get the next problem and print it out twice, it'll print out the same thing, 4 times 13, 4 times 13. So the 13 doesn't change in the get problem. It only changes after the next problem. So if I get two next problems and I print out the get problem, it'll be 15, right? 13, 14, 15, adds twice. And then add one more time, get the next problem once, it'll print it out as 16, 4 times 16. So they give me the interface, and it says, write the complete multi-practice class. Our implementation must be consistent with the specifications and the given examples. And so they give me some space to write it. So I have to write the whole class, and that's all that's given. So first thing I do is I know a class is public. I know it's a class, and the name they give me is multi-practice, if I can type it out. And because it's an interface, I need to implement, as the keyword, the interface study practice. So that's my class declaration, class header. Study practice. Make sure everything's spelled correctly. Implement, looks good. Okay, it says in the directions, a multi-practice object is constructed with two integer values, first and second. So I need to have those two instance variables. So I need a private int integer value first, and just call it first, and then second. That takes care of that sentence right there. First integer, second integer. Okay, so now I need to create a constructor. Always need a constructor. And the constructor is just public, and it matches the class name, multi-practice. And then in the parameter list, in the arguments, I need to match what it says in the directions, in the examples. So if I look at all examples, the constructors take two numbers, and obviously I have two numbers here, so I'll just copy those again, int first, int second. And you can call these whatever you want, but I like using the words from the question. But watch out, because they're the same names, first and first, I need to use the keyword this to differentiate. So this first, the keyword this means it's the instance variable up top. And so I'm going to assign it to the value of first. And same thing with second. This dot second, that's the instance variable, and I'm going to assign it to the value of second. And that's the constructor. So I have the parameters first and second on the right. I have the instance variables, first and second, on the left with the keyword this. So this is almost always on the left when I'm doing a constructor. So that's the setup for the multi-practice class. Now, because it's a study practice, I need to implement the two methods that they give me. They give me string get problem, so I'll do that first. But because it's an interface, I need to make it public. Everything else is the same. And instead of a semicolon, I use brackets because it's a method definition. So the next problem is going to return a string, and it's going to return a string with the pattern first integer times second integer. So I need to do string concatenation. So I just return first concatenated with space times plus concatenate second. And that's all I do. It's like a two-string basically. I just take the variables first and second and make a nice sentence out of it. Number times other number. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is the next problem. So again, it's an interface method, so I need to make it public. Everything else, I'm just copying. I'm looking over here and saying, okay, void next problem. And nothing in the parentheses, so that's my method signature. Next problem. And it says right here, this second value is incremented for each additional practice problem. I look at my examples, 3, 4, 5. So each time I call a next problem, it goes up by 1. So I'm just going to increment the second number, just the second number, by 1. So second plus plus, or second plus equals 1, or second equals plus, second plus 1. But second plus plus is fine. So there is the entire multi-practice class implementing study practice, instance variables, constructor matching the examples, and matching the instance variables, the two methods that match the interface list, and then the two things I need to do: print it out, return the string. I don't print it out, I return the string, and then increment. And that's 2017 APCSA FRQ number 2.